Good evening and welcome on this special day, the Women's Day. So, we have a very special event today to mark this occasion, which is very different from the usual genre of events that we've been having. Today, we have two distinguished scholars, Aditi Mehta and Dr. M.D. Muthukumar Sami. Many of you would know both of them, but this publication seems to be a fascinating one about a little known culture. Little known, I say, because little known in this part of the country, about the Bhils. To give you a small introduction, Aditi Mehta encountered the Gavri. Gavri is the name of the festival and also the goddess, which I am told is a form of Gauri. She encountered Gavri 35 years ago when she was posted as a young IAS officer in Rajasthan. Ever since then, she has gone to witness the Gavri as it travels to different villages and documented its form and the life world of the Bhils who perform it. These three volumes are a labor of several decades and express a devotion to this civilizational form and lived moral cosmos of a group that is otherwise well known as one of the most economically disadvantaged communities in India. Even as most Bhils find themselves working in India's precarious informal economy as daily wage laborers, the Gavri still continues. These volumes are dedicated to its continuity, with the prayer for the possibilities of a life fully lived within and outside the Gavri for the Bhils. It is my pleasure to welcome on stage Ma'am, Mrs. Aditi Mehta. Please, ma'am. I have the privilege to introduce Dr. M.D. Muthukumar Sami, who is a distinguished scholar, writer, and cultural administrator, serving as the director of the National Folklore Support Center, the NFSC, since 1997. Previously, he worked as a consultant for the Ford Foundation and taught at St. Xavier's College, Palayamkottai. He holds a PhD in semiotic analysis of Bharatakootu, reflecting his deep engagement with folklore and performance traditions. As NFSC director, he has led major projects funded by the Ford Foundation and Tata Trust, including oral epic documentation, visual art traditions, and indigenous community archives. He established the All India Tata Fellowships in Folklore, mentoring 30 scholars across 15 Indian universities, and directed one of India's largest folk festivals in 2000. A senior visiting professor in Germany and Ethiopia, he has lectured worldwide and presented at UNESCO events. His books include Folklore as Discourse and One Nation, Many Voices. A prolific creative writer in English and Tamil, his works span poetry, essays, and plays. His Tamil translations include poetry by Basho, Mahmood Darwish, I hope I am right in the pronunciation, Pessoa, Borges, Paul Celan, and more. In 2022-23, he co-curated a Tamil Cultural Histories exhibition at the Linden Museum, Stuttgart, showcasing his expertise in folklore and heritage. My privilege again to welcome Dr. Muthukumar Sami onto the stage. Thank you. There is a small leaflet here for those who are interested. At the end of the program, please collect a copy. It will be right here. Thank you. Without further ado, I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Muthukumar Sami. Please.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Chandramouli, for your graceful introduction of us. I would request Mrs. Aditi Mehta to begin the talk. I would intervene now and then, and it will be a conversation. I would request Mrs. Aditi Mehta to introduce her book first.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank, good evening, friends. I'd like to thank Mr. Chandramouli for extending this invitation to me. It gave me a very good reason to reunite with my batchmates. So I'm coming to Chennai after almost 30 years. So it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's very nice for me to be presenting before you, because as Mr. Chandramouli said, this is not something here in the South we would be very familiar with. So I'm very, very happy to actually introduce this. So I think without further ado, we can just start off. It's not a very long presentation, and we look forward to a kind of interaction with each other and with, of course, members of the audience. This is a 3-volume work, and I've named the first volume Dancing Jogis Praying Kelias. A jogi, of course, is, we all know what a jogi is, but a kelia is the person who actually plays. It's from the word kel. So all the bhils who are dancing are known as kelias. So it basically goes into bhil history, bhil, the Gavri rituals, its performance, and the content of all the kales. And we have documented about 40 kales. The smallest kale may be 1 of 2 pages, while the largest is about 230, 40 odd pages. It also deals with the kelias and what is known as their embodied repertoire. And it discusses the role of women in the Gavri. As most folk forms, this is entirely enacted by males, bhil males. The afterword discusses the future of Gavri. Volume 2 is Songs of Love and Laughter. This basically is, I undertook the mnemonic exercise of creating a text. This is really an oral tradition. It varies from village to village, and as all oral traditions, it varies every time it's conducted, and certainly there's a kahavat that, the water, the vani and pani, varies with every 5 course. So this is why I thought it was also good for posterity, and also to create a kind of archive of the matter that we have. So these are in the Bhil Mewari Dhavri, and with it there is also the diacritic and a translation in English. And this provides readers with a direct experience of exactly the spoken language of the Bhils. As I've said, this is a mnemonic exercise. This is Songs of Love and Laughter. Volume 3, I've named Tales of the Dark and the Origin Story. And this is the seed myth of the Bhils. It really talks about their own self-conception of how they came into the world. And it is extremely dramatic in its performances. These are all night kales. And this is basically something that is an extremely serious kind of exploration of the Bhil worldview. The Olaknas are the women's songs where women talk about their longing, Parvati's longing for going to her in-laws' place when she's at home, and therefore conversely also her longing for home once she's in the home of her husband. So just a brief understanding of who the Bhils are. They're the largest tribe of India. And in Rajasthan, they are mostly concentrated in the south and in the east, Udaipur division and Kota division. The 2011 census put the Bhils in Rajasthan at 41 lakhs. But there has been a secular decline in their population. In 1901, which is 100 years ago, they comprised 21% of our population, whereas today they're at 13-14%. This dance that we are talking about is danced only in the 4 districts, the 4 southern districts of Mewar, which is Udaipur, Bhilwara, Chittor, and Rajasthan. And I'd like to also add that, historically, Bhil resistance was criminalized by the British and also by the outsiders who came and invaded their lands as lawbreakers. And so this is the sort of population we are now discussing. Now, what is Gavri? Next. Gavri is, As I said, I consider it the seed myth of the Bhils. It is the Bhil cultural artifact. It is a 40-day carnival. It is a 40-day ritual, carnival, festival of the Bhils, and it is called Sawa Mahine Ka Khel. It transcends caste and class barriers, and it brings the entire community together. They are performed for Gorkhiya Mata, and I would like to just highlight the fact that Gorkhiya Mata is the only known avatar of the Devi who actually demands laughter, levity, fun, happiness as her offering. And the khels are never performed independently of the ritual. There is a daily establishment of Gorkhiya Mata at the new site of where they are to perform. And it's only from there that, again, the new day starts and the new civilization, the story starts repeatedly.
Yeah, I must congratulate you for this wonderful books that you have brought out, and then as they are heavy, and then you need two people to carry the 3 volumes, as you can see. It's a labor of love, and your engagement has been astonishingly for 35 years, right? Would you mind saying how did your engagement with the Mewar Bhils Gavri festival start?
So, actually, I was an SDO, and I was going on tour and I was an SDO in Udaipur. I was going on tour, and I noticed a group of very gaily dressed villagers dancing with so much votive enthusiasm that I stopped the jeep and stopped to look and just try and understand. But as it happens in government, you have to go somewhere, people are waiting. So I was hurried along by my staff that, yes, and this is fine. So anyway, we went, and I finished whatever I had to do there and came back. 5 or 6 hours later, they were still dancing. I was astonished. I thought, this is not just a dance. This is obviously something that I need to understand. And after that, really, I call it the Jeep moment, but it really is the moment I fell in love with this form. And it's stayed with me. And just small things, I was extremely insensitive to the pointers that were coming to me in my office, because I come from I'm a Bengali speaking, I'm coming from a very different background in Mewar. And there was a peon in my office who would constantly disappear. And I would sometimes ask, where is he? And nobody seemed to think anything of it. And finally, one day when I asked my peshkar, who was a very sort of redoubtable kind of man, where is Nandji? He said, wo to khelwa gaya. Khelwa gaya. I was scandalized. He's gone to play on office time. And, I was very, 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 very upset. But nobody seemed to bat an eyelid. And I realize now, after 30, 40 years, that if I had been a little more sensitive to the cues around me, I would have myself understood that maybe this is something much more deep and fundamental to the people that we are with, that I'm living with. So, and also, since you're asking me how I could write this, often people ask me that, how are you writing about the Bhils? You're a Bengali, you don't know anything of their culture. I had to learn the language, of course. I did learn the language. My husband is from there, and also helped in transacting my business, my official work in Rajasthan.
It is a oral language, right?
It's all an oral.
It is written with the script of Rajasthani or Hindi?
It is written in Devanagari. But it is Mewari plus Dhavri. And in 2019, Dhavri was declared one of the lost languages. So there is a UNESCO project in trying to trace it. So this is really the language in which these books are. Of course, there's the language, there's the diacritic, and then there's the translation.
And transliteration.
Yes, transliteration.
But when you say that you learned Mewari Bhil, it means you're learning it from the oral sources.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. There's no text
And there is
from
no
which to
text.
learn Mewari. No, there isn't.
Your book also is the transcription of the oral text.
It's a transcription of the oral text, completely, yes. And it's the first time
Yeah,
we've
this
been
is
able
being
to do
done.
it. Yes.
But you have done that before, right? But you have been for 35 years, means it's quite a long time learning a language. How would you describe this journey of this engagement with this Gavri festival?
Well, I have to say that this was a very fraught journey. Of course, I would attend many Gavris, attend many men, and try and document as much as I could. And I would photograph and talk to people and talk to Khelias, interview them, and so on. But I was posted away. I was posted to Ajmer and other places. And I kept all of these materials. You know, in bureaucracy, we have this trunk. And all my materials were trunked and safe. So I thought. And after a long while, I remember going back to it when I had leave, and I was actually devastated when my trunk was considerably depleted. Of course, I had the sense of having the first oral text recorded by my ex-PA, but all the other interviews, photographs, all of them had somehow disappeared. And I was devastated. I was absolutely so completely taken away that I could not see the text or hear the word for many years afterwards. I was just really very, very disturbed and shattered emotionally. It's only much, much later that a friend told me, she reminded me of M.N. Srinivas and said that, look, if a complicated ethnography of a South Indian village can be undertaken from memory. After M.N. Srinivas's notes were all burnt and destroyed, you can certainly do this. So she sort of gave me courage, and of course I did a lot more research again, but so that's how today we are where we are.
Yeah, it is an amazing work because first of all, recording a oral language that does not have a script, then transcribing it, and then translating it and transliterating it, and this the second volume and the third volumes have all these translated texts, which makes you probably one of the most or the only documentarian of the Bhils. That also makes you a representative of their culture to speak to the rest of the world about them. How do you feel about that?
It's a very difficult question, because a lot of people would ask me, how are you?
Yeah, representing.
At all a representative of, and they're the poorest, most marginalized people. If you were to see them and not of them, you would never imagine that they are repositories of such depth, and they're all unlettered still. I remember, this Anna Akhmatova, this Russian poetess. She was standing in a queue outside the Leningrad prison, waiting to see her son. And they would stand day after day, week after week, and there were long queues. And one day, one of the women turned around, must have recognized her, and just told her that you must write of this. I hope you will write. And without thinking, this is in the Requiem, without thinking, she said, yes, I will. And I think for me also, this is a sort of just a moment when I decided that this must be exposed and expressed to the world, that their philosophy, their worldview, their culture, their riches of civilization must be told. And I didn't think whether I was competent, whether I was knowledgeable, whether I had the cultural baggage and background. I just decided I would do it.
But it is an enormous task. It is a 40-day festival.
Yes.
And
yes.
It happens over a route. but simultaneously or one by one?
Absolutely.
Simultaneously, it will take place in several villages in the
Yes.
eastern and the southern part of Rajasthan.
These 4 districts.
The
yes.
4 districts of Rajasthan. So it contains 3 parts. One is a ritual, the other is the play,
And the play.
and the
ritual
play.
and the play. Yes.
The ritual and the play, both are all done by different group of people or from the Bhils.
All the same people.
All the same.
people. When a village decides that they're going to do the Gavri, every able-bodied Bhil male must participate. This is almost like a tribal whip. And this is the social control of the tribal community today. I mean, people who are working and laboring in Surat, Ahmedabad, they come back to their pur and the villages when the Gavri is held.
And it is unique to that region.
It is unique only to
The Mewari Bhils. And let's talk about the goddess.
Okay.
How is she different from in her female identity from the other Hindu goddesses?
So, Gorkhiya Mata, for instance, one thing is, Gorkhiya comes to you. You don't go to her. She's the only goddess who goes from village to village to village to village. So she is never at home. She's always out of the house. She's always traveling around the Mewar countryside. And when the Gavri is decided, you can have 3, 4, even 500 Gavris simultaneously. So you just imagine that there are, and each Gavri troop, some may be small, but some are 400 or 500 men and boys who are playing. So they move and they walk and they are barefooted. They walk from village to village to village, doing this whole set of khels and singing the jhamtas, all in honor of Goddess Gorkhiya. And it is still undertaken with the same kind of enthusiasm and vigor.
And still, we do. I want you to elaborate how she is different from other Hindu goddesses in terms of representing feminine divinity.
Right. So Gorkhiya Mata is very much a liberated woman. She is very much an active, laboring goddess. As I said, she does not wait for her, for people to come and offer obeisance. She goes from, she is willed, first of all. She is willed into existence. And her representation, it can be a stone, it can be a piece of wood. But she is willed, and once she is willed, then she travels with the troop from village to village. She has no, protective covering. There is no building or no, and when Gavri is not being played, she occupies a small little shelf or a niche in the Amba Mata Ka Mandir. So she is herself is somebody very much like the Bhils who travel, who work, who labor, who disappears, who comes. And what is remarkable is that she demands that you spend these 40 days, of course, within a scaffolding of ritual, but laughing, creating laughter, creating mirth and happiness, which is in itself one of the most important necessities of our life.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting because it's a moral play happening within the context of observances and rituals.
Absolutely. I mean, here we see play as a moral act.
Play
as a moral act, and within the scaffolding of extremely rigid, austere penances and abstinences, which are undertaken by all the Khelyas. There is no footwear, there's no bathing for 40 days except for that one day of Dev Jhulni Gyaras, when all the gods in all the temples are taken out to bathe and after the procession put back in their temples. No cutting of hair, nails, no changing of clothes. So, and what is amazing is that even the village from which the Gavri originates observes the food disciplines, observes these other disciplines of chastity and so on. And this is the scaffolding for the play. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, what
So-
are the rituals that the rituals or rituals of fertility and rituals of love? What do they contain? The ritual part of the
So
and how many rituals take place? Or what do they do?
it is there are about almost 20 or 25 major rituals, and this starts from the very beginning, the first day of Jagaran, where the entire village will assemble before the Devi temple, and there actually is spirit possession. When actually the Devi is invited, she comes or she does not come. But this is the beginning ritual. After this ritual, when it is decided that it's going to be had, then you start this entire, what we call transference, this entire act of transference. Whereas when you actually wear the ceremonial clothes of the gods and assume godly powers, and these are universal all over the Mewar region. Can we go to the next
Yeah,
also? This
yeah.
is the Gavri, the mask, the Budia's mask that you see on the cover of on the spine of these books. And Budia is, when he is, of course, signifies Shiv, but he also signifies, when it is taken off, he signifies Bhasmasur. So it's a very interesting kind of play on what they see as constituting the reality of the main fertility symbol of their cosmos. Here you see Budia being received by village women. This is another ritual when the men are not allowed to shave, but there are the two rais, and so the rais' faces are always covered with cloth during this, so that the feminine aspect comes to the fore. Here the sprouts, again a fertility symbol. I wanted to show this. The Khelias partake of just one meal a day. This is generally a communal meal, and they sit, and so this is also a very important ritual, that together, everyone who is part of this will sit together and have their afternoon meal. This is the evening prayer at the temple. This is the clay elephant. Towards the very end, the hereditary potter will be asked to fashion a clay elephant with Parvati and Shiv as a mahut, to take her back home after her 40 days sojourn to her mother. So this is the fashioning of the clay elephant. And this is Parvati being taken in procession for the immersion. This.
So these rituals take place all throughout the 40 days.
All through the 40 days.
Intercepted by the plays, or the plays take place completely different?
No, the plays are simultaneous.
Simultaneous. So the
Simultaneous,
rituals
every single day. Yes.
every
yes.
day there will be a ritual and a play.
Yes. Yes.
So they are alternated and then performed through a procession from village to village.
The plays are constant. They are the constant over the 40 days. Some of these rituals are punctuated by non-ritual days.
Okay.
Yes.
That's but it's a very complex 40 days
Yes.
of
Yes.
and what is the central narrative
Yeah.
in the entire thing that cohere both the rituals and the play? What is the worldview? What is that the people, by conducting this or observing these rituals and telling the stories to themselves, what do they tell themselves? What is their worldview?
Yeah, right. So, this is an interpretive work. I have to say, this is how I have seen and read and understood. But I would like to say that this is largely from the origin story, the largest Jhamta Khel. And I would say that their central message of this is that all things that have a beginning must have an end. And the Khel highlights the cyclical nature of time and creation. And creation is often amorphous. The way Shivji came forth was very amorphous. He came forth from a blister. But it is not accidental. And creation is and must be continuous. This is in their Khel very clearly. And another important lesson, I think, is that life is not easy even for the Devi. And so she often resorts to both moral suasion, but also to all kinds of wily, earthy stratagems to get her way. But the most important moral act is play, that is to walk, strive, sing, dance, grieve, and be. And the rest, as the Khelia says, is all Maya.
That's a very interesting thing, because to understand that the so-called tribes and then the so-called people who are at the lowest rung of the social hierarchy seem to have such a sophisticated worldview about creation, about the cyclical nature of life, about creation being a continuous process, and they seem to have a very distinctive worldview that sustains their life. They sustains their everyday life, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I would really say that Shiv was a tribal god.
Yeah, okay.
Shiv was a tribal god, as was Parvati. But the Bhils of Mewar actually claim that they are direct descendants of Shiv and Parvati, and that Hindus have appropriated fully and completely their entire cosmology and their gods. And, we ourselves know that the lines between animism and Hinduism are very blurred. So it is something today, if you go to an ordinary village, you will see that the Hindus are also as much a part of the Gavri, though it is undertaken completely by the Bhils, and they are center stage during the Sawa Mahina. But I would like to just, go after the central, if you can go to, social. We see this as a kind of very important case of social inversion. Because, you have this orgy of fun, dance, parody, scatological wit, making fun of the powers that be in the village. And this is when the marginalized Bhils, they become the gods. They are the dancing gods. And they confer blessings on all the other castes. So this one form actually transcends caste and class boundaries. So it is a cultural form which does not contest caste. Sorry, I've lost this. It does not contest caste, but it subverts it because of its very construct. I mean, you don't have a Gavri until all castes come together and almost plead with the Bhil Samaj to undertake it. And also, let us not forget, the Bhils still own largely the marginal lands and the wastelands. The larger flat lands, irrigated lands are all still taken up, owned by the Rajputs, the Patels, and so on. So it's a very, very important moment when the axis of power is completely shifted, because the upper castes want a festival. They want this ritual which only the Bhils can undertake.
But it is a temporary reversal.
It is temporary, but it is also my contention that through repeated iterations of this, the entire status of the community in society has certainly become not marginal anymore, but they are known as the Puraks. They are known to complete the half of the rest of society. So I also contend that through this is the construction of a cultural commons, because the Bhils actually pray to the sky, to the air, to the wind, to the rain, to the sun. And it is through this constant reiteration of this kind of philosophy to be mindful of nature and the earth that you have a society that is living in some kind of sync with some of these values.
I like terming it as a cultural commons because we seem to have lost it, the urban people, and then this kind of research into the most marginalized tribal people of Rajasthan, and then looking at their folklore and the festival brings us to the fact that there needs to be an engagement with the nature, engagement with the worldview. We need to develop as a cultural commons. We need to have as a community, need to have a worldview which is common to everybody, and which is sustained through rituals and the festivals. Because we go through all that, we also have rituals, we also have festivals, but we go through that more as a kind of a mechanical way of celebrating and then having it as a holiday. But then these people are living it. Right, it is a living tradition.
And reminding the others in a very, without articulating it, but stating it very forcefully, that until we do this, until we live in harmony with nature and with each other, there will be only destruction. So the next, so what exactly is being performed? So I would like to say that here the Bhils are investing in life. This is the notion of a cultural commons which is under attack everywhere, and we know it in our society. But by transcending social divisions, by privileging the natural world, this is a element of a very radical, I think very modern configuration of recovering the commons. And so there is a co-reality of a very normative, ethical existence along with the everyday reality. They are all workers, they are laborers, they work in the mines and the khans and so on. So to hold on to this belief and to live that life when the material conditions of your reality are so negative is just remarkable. So I would say the Bhils continually live and assert this kind of extremely radical assertion of the commons through really a very public, unashamed exhibition of larger life concerns.
But you see, although the goddess is the one celebrated, but the performers are all male. How do you see that? Because there are Kales, I understand, or the plays. There are, how many plays are being performed?
About 40.
About 40 plays are being performed, and all the plays are being performed by the males.
Yes.
How is that what is the representation that is taking place?
You're right. This is a, I mean, I've tried to problematize it also with my interlocutors, with the Bhils, and this is something that is the reality, that there is no physical role for the women, and they say that we dance for the women. We are doing it as a kind of, hum to puja aapka karte hain. So we don't expect you to be active on the field because we are doing this performance for you in your honor. And but I do feel that this is something that is, Bhil society is also extremely patriarchal. I mean, women do not own land, and women are not invited into the panchayat meetings where decisions are undertaken. So this is also the reality. At one level, when you can actually, you can make the Bhil woman into a godhead for 40 days, but actually when real life concerns take over, you have women that are still very much lower down in the rung. So this is
when I read through your book, and then some of the Kales are fascinating. They are very imaginative, and then very beautiful. And the 10 lakhs sisters of Gavri.
9 lakhs.
9 lakhs sisters of 1 lakh I left out because after all this is a male talking. This is a 9 lakhs sisters of Gavri. And what is this fascinating world about? Okay, would you walk us through this place, on some of the plays?
So Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will just talk about maybe some of the aspects because it's really a very, very large subject. But I wanted to talk about the carnivalesque.
Mm.
And this is something, I used this whole um, theoretical framework of Bakhtin and
Yeah.
Rabelais, but just as a limited kind of cultural analytic, because I think the Gavri goes way beyond that. But this is the carnivalesque humor, and it is what they call marketplace expression, where hierarchies are broken down, where the people who are socially in the ascendant are made fun of. And we have it openly in the Khels. So, to that extent, this is something, and these are people who cohabit. They are all people who live in the same village. So, you actually have Khels where you will make fun of the village Thakur, who is, of course, the landed gentry, the caste head, the head of the caste hierarchy, and so on. But talk when the Mehrani Khel comes, they will talk about the Mehrani going in the evening to the Thakur's apartment, and there are titters all across the ground. People laugh, people look at the Thakur, people poke fun. So there are constant subversions and reversals which are accepted in this kind of, what should I say, uplifted atmosphere of the Khels. And so this is the Khel of the Badliya Hindwa. Badliya is the Barkat, the banyan tree, and Hindwa is to rock. So this is a very, very venerable banyan tree. This is a story about how Devi Ambav goes down to the seventh world under the ground, picks up this banyan tree, comes to Earth, Mother Earth, puts it down, and the Raja Jail, who's a very pusillanimous kind of king, for some reason has it cut down. This is in very short form what this Khel is about. But it talks about the weak charactered, lack of strength in Raja Jail, the kind of vengeful action taken by the Devi, and it teaches you the life lessons that what have you been born to undertake, what has been the reason for, in a sense, your life. It forces you to look and ask that why were you born and what is that one significant action that you've undertaken, if you put it that way.
I'm extremely happy that you brought these plays and the performances into under the theoretical rubric of Mikhail Bakhtin. As many of us know, from Bakhtin is a Russian scholar whose theoretical work is used in sociology, anthropology, folklore, and literary studies in a major way. And we see Bakhtin's one of the concepts is the carnival, especially Rabelais and his world. He's talking about how the carnival atmosphere brings about a reversal of the normal. And the normal society's hierarchy is completely reversed for a temporary period. So Rabelais is, and his world is it's a very insightful work, like it's Dostoevsky's and it's a dialogic world. So to bring in that bring the theoretical framework, of course, gives us an access to the entire corpus of 40 plays, which is otherwise very difficult to access for us to understand what is happening there, to look into these stories. Another thing, you mentioned the sexual humor.
Yes.
And the reversal.
Yeah. There's a lot of sexual humor. There's a lot of sexual illusions, but there is none of the sort of playing to sexual desire. Mm-hmm. So it is a kind of, I would say, I won't call it desexualized, but certainly this is no tamasha. Mm-hmm. This is not something that you would have otherwise in a North Indian rural folk milieu. No. It is something actually, even when it's done, everyone is extremely aware of the kind of implication this is likely to have for the message that is being sort of sent. So I think you would have this kind of, I mean, for instance, even the dances that are undertaken, there is, of course, showing of stomach or arms and so on, but there is nothing to really titillate or of any vulgarity. So it's very interesting. And then but there is also open talk of sexuality. There is open admission of transgression, sexual transgression. And so it's a very interesting kind of tension that you see all the time being sort of balanced.
The Gavri, the Gorkhiya Mata herself is a transgressor.
She herself is a transgressor, completely. I mean, if you go to the Olaknas, it's very clear that when she goes home, to her parents' home, the cobbler comes with a wonderful pair of mojeries, and he says that they're for 1 lakh rupees. So she takes off her ring and gives it to him. The cobbler gives her one, and she looks at him and said, I can't just wear one. And he tells her that I'll give you the other one if you were to, the word in Hindi is sambhog. So it is a word for intercourse, it is a word for eating together. So then, so she eats with Shiv. And Shiv gets to know of this up in Kailash. And this is the kind of transgression that is talked about. And she then, when she is going up to him, when he is in his trance and he's in his meditation, she wants to enter, and Shiv has told Narad to lock the gates because she's been with another man, I will not have anything to do with her. And she comes in forcefully and says that I have come in standing, and the only way I'll go out is lying down. That is when I die. So when I'm carried out. So this is the kind of, assertion of your own independence and a kind of very open acknowledgement of sexuality, which really here knows no even celestial boundaries.
There seems to be a double bind. On the one hand, the sexuality is being openly talked about, and there is a fertility rituals intervening. And so it is a kind of a life force assertion.
Absolutely.
Of the community.
Yes.
And
yes.
also to be enacting the transgression and the conformity.
It's actually acted out. This happens on the last but one night of the Khel. It's an all-night Khel, and you actually have the marriage of Shiv and Parvati, and how Parvati goes to bathe, and all of it is acted out.
Yeah, and also there is a conformity to the Bhil values.
Yes. Whereas, if you ask, often in the newspaper you'll read about a Bhil woman who has been hurt because of having an affair with somebody else. And my Khelia, that day they were sitting, ye to Bhagwan ke dekha dekhi to ho raha. They're talking about, this is not just us, this happened even among the gods. So what are we talking about? It's interesting.
So it seems to be the 40. We are almost nearing 7 o'clock. So maybe another 10-15 minutes we need to wind up. But the plays seem to be a complete package of cosmology, sexuality, humor, entertainment, and identity assertion.
Yes.
And reversal. And reversal of the social hierarchies. And there is they become priests, right? The Bhils become the priests for other castes to worship.
The Bhopas, of course, all other castes also go to. The Bhopas are supposed to be people with a direct, hotline to the gods. So they transmit the messages of the gods to the people. Whereas, the Ojhas are people who you would go to cure things like eye ache or a headache, or a lot of Ojhas, when you have epilepsy or that sort of disease in rural areas, you're taken to an Ojha still. But this is a different kind of, circuit altogether.
Wonderful. So, but see, it is obviously a very complex tradition, and then it has a very complex oral literature.
Yes.
To make it accessible, maybe you should run through and then see any of the tales that you want to talk about.
So there's another tale of this Devi Ambav, as I mentioned. Maybe the next one we can go to. Yeah, these are the Devi who's come in the guise of a nut. You know, nuts are acrobats, village acrobats, and they have come. They want to tie a rope in the palace, and they want to do their acrobatics, and she has come because she wants to behead the Raja, because Raja Jail has cut down the banyan tree, the Barlia Hindwa, the celestial banyan tree. So this is a very long tale with many sub-tales and subplots and so on. But essentially, there are many life lessons, frankly, that are sought to be communicated. And a lot of these are, they also become now part of the main body of sort of evening kahaniya and so on, which you have in the villages. Like a subplot of this is how Dharya Bhil went to the Raja to try and cut down the Badliya Hindwa, but all the Devis, the 9 lakh Devis, turned into bumblebees and started biting him. So what he had to do to propitiate them, and so on and so on and so on. And like all folk traditions, from one you run on into many other subplots and stories. So it is something also that, by the end of it, you start feeling sorry for this Raja Jail, because in his weakness, in his pusillanimity, he shows a kind of very tattered moral fiber. And I think this is what the Bhils wanted to project, that he may have been your Raja, but at the end of the day, he's no man before you.
Mm-hmm.
This is again a small scale. I wanted to show that there's no real training for the Gavri, but this is how the next generation really learns. So these are all young boys who are children who are now playing, and they're dressing up. They're playing the role of Meenas in the Khel of Goma Meena. And Goma Meena again is these are all small stories, but obviously all of them with a kind of message or a lesson if you were to look for them.
Meena are a different caste or a tribe?
There are 4 kinds of Meenas in Rajasthan. The Jaipur, Savai Madhopur Meenas were the sort of the kings and kiledars of Jaipur, Amer and so on. As they were in our parts as well, Udaipur, Kota, they were ruled by the Bhils.
Okay.
And but these Meenas, as I said, there are 4 different types. But today's Bhils are very suspicious of the Meenas of the Jaipur, and they say that they're not us and we are not them. So these are the Meenas, and here the Bhils look down upon the local Meenas, saying, "Oh, to chori kare." That they were professional, not professional criminals. What would I say? That a lot of their occupation was of foraging and of pillaging, and there's a whole khel that they together decide ki daka bahut din hua, daka nahi dala. We've not gone on a combined job of banditry. It's been many moons.
So there is a conflict between Meenas and the Bhils in real life also.
Not a conflict. I won't say conflict, but I think they live sort of amongst and with each other, but they don't intermarry. So.
Oh, wonderful. Is there anything particular that you want to say about the Khels further? We are moving into the concluding session of the presentation. I'll run through the slides, and then if you want to say anything particular about the acrobatics as part of the presentation. Yes.
These again, lot of historical historical reality also presented. For instance, the Chittor incident, the Maharana Pratap and the forge, all of these are enacted and portrayed. So you'll always find the foreigner or the upper caste in a uniform, usually with a padded stomach, haldi, and so on, usually with a hat.
This is the Minas on a rampage.
These are Minas on the rampage. So this again, this is part of a khel, Goma Mina. This again, as I said, a kind of, these are all khelias. Even the woman who's adjusting her blouse is a khelia. Sitting in the audience among other women, and you have a wolf there.
Yeah, what is the wolf doing there?
Yes, so it's a very very open, a very public kind of statement of, sexual desire or whatever have you. So we've talked about this. This I think we've discussed already.
And the suburb.
Yes.
Okay. Then the romances.
Yes, again, this is about the whole second volume is stories of love and laughter. So,
and the third volume is about the cosmology.
Correct. Third volume is the cosmology. The next is the scale of Nahar Singhi. The next photograph also talks about how the Nahar Singhi swallows live coals to expiate the sins of the universe. And I also want to say that this is a khel of, possession. In fact, when I first was writing it, it's about 20 years ago, I called it the sort of trance dance of Mewar, because there is, in every single day, in many of the khels, you will see vast members of the audience coming into possession. And it is obviously a very cathartic moment for them all. And this is a kind of safe space for them to really express without articulation the kind of inequities that they have to undertake every day, or just the kind of life situation, and this is where they seek relief. So you will find at very sensitive moments of the khel, vast swaths of the audience will come into possession, men and women. It's and the whole atmosphere becomes charged.
Yeah, it is a very complex tradition you are talking about, and then there is a 41 lakhs of bills with these corpus represent.
Yes.
And looking at the length of the plays, the khels, and the rituals put together, see, it is almost, and the cosmology, it almost looks like an epic. Epic. See, for instance, the world's epic. Finland has a fragmented epic, as you all know, Kalevala. They Finnish folklorists make a big deal about it, and then they made it into a national epic. And India is full of so many oral epics, and this one would also qualify as one of the oral epics.
Absolutely,
and,
it is. Except that the hero is a woman.
Yes.
And not a man. All the other Ramayana and all of them have male heroes.
Protagonists, yeah. And this being such a complex oral epic and the oral tradition of 41 lakhs of people, and then it deserves some kind of attention from the rest of the India at least. And then it being such a complex tradition and oral tradition, making it accessible, that you have made an extraordinary effort to bring in the ethnographic context, the texts of the songs of the love and laughter, and then the cosmology into 3 bulky volumes. And what do you see the future of this tradition?
So, it's very interesting. I have a slide on it. I'm glad you asked me, Muthu. So this is the epilogue. And I wanted to take a few minutes to just talk about this. This is a sort of interesting issue. Now, the Bhil Samaj, right from 1952, has been banning the Gavri, has been saying that we don't want to do it. If the upper caste want it, why don't they do it? Why should we sacrifice 40 days of our wage labor and of our home and hearth and dance? After all, it's a common responsibility, and we're not dancing for ourselves, we're dancing for society. We're dancing for everyone's, what should I say, upliftment. So the Bhil Panchayat has been banning the Gavri, but the play has been continuing despite the ban. In fact, even during the COVID, there was one Gavri that was with great secrecy that was undertaken despite the ban of people amassing together and so on. And you know, even within the community, all the self-respect analysts have been saying that it is exploitative, it is iniquitous, and these are, no greens are allowed. So this is the poorest community. This is the season when greens are available freely, and you are banning the poorest community from partaking of it. So it is open to conjecture. I asked my interlocutors, I asked this Kamal Dasji, who is in this book, that if it is such a hardship, and if it is only to benefit the crop cycle and the animals and so on of the upper castes, and you don't have all these big animals, you have just goats, you don't have big fields, then why do you do it? And he looked at me. He looked at me as if he could not believe that after all these years I would still be so ignorant as to ask him. And he looked at me and he said, because she's us. We're dancing to ourselves. And, it is something so moving, because they actually feel that they're not doing it for anything but for their own sanctity and for the survival of the human race. So
I greatly appreciate the efforts that you have made to make a very complex tradition and the text accessible to this attentive audience. I will throw open for questions, and then if you have any questions. I recognize the gentleman there.
no, not here with me. But if you go to YouTube, you will find lakhs, not just hundreds and thousands, you will find lakhs and lakhs. You just type Gavri. Everyone makes films on Gavri these days. It's again, the music of the Gavri is again pared down. There is only the madal and the thali. And I think the rudest and the poorest house in the village would have a thali. Okay. And the thali is used with, of course, the danda, the thali, and then you have the jhalar, which is the triangle. So no other instrument is used. So it is the drum and the thali. And then, of course, it is vocalization. Yes, yes. And this is at a time when even today in rural India, even for the 26 January functions, you can't have it without a synthesizer. And, so this is also part of their ideology of Spartan simplicity and access, so that everyone can access this music, can understand this music and be part of it. So I think it is conscious. It is rhythmic and it is poetic, and they sing, yes.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, first of all. This was a really lovely representation of the Bhilas. So what I want is, my name is Eda Patania. I'm from Sisha School and I'm an 11th grader. So my only question for you tonight is, could the book's reinterpretation of goddesses and mythology create divisions or debates within the Hindu community? Because you've spoken about how the upper castes react, right? So could you explain about how you think that there could be a possibility that it diminishes the divine status of gods themselves in the Hindu mythology?
So can I just understand what you're saying, that you feel that
it could...
sorry?
Can you rephrase the question again?
Okay. So basically, I want to ask you is that you've spoken about how the upper castes of the Hindu religion feel about this community, right? So I just want to say that because you've talked about Gauri, right, being someone who goes from house to house, she isn't in one place at all.
Village to village.
Yeah, village to village, right? So she doesn't stay in one place as the other gods of the Hindu mythology are. So I just want to understand, do you think it diminishes the actual divinity of gods in the Hindu mythology?
Yeah, I think here actually people say that we love Gorkhiya because she comes to us. If she didn't come to us, then we would have to go to her, like we have to go to Amba, we have to go to Saraswati, we have to go to all the others. So to that extent, this is something that is seen as a goddess who comes to her laity, who comes to the people who pray for her and pray with her and ask her. So that, I don't think that it doesn't diminish her at all. No.
It rather enhances
Yes.
the divinity
Yes.
because she comes to you.
She comes, yeah.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, that was a wonderful presentation on the introduction of life of the Bhils. My name is Trijal and I'm a 11th grader. I have one question which either of you can answer. As governments implement more and more schemes to modernize tribal areas, cultures and religion starts diminishing, where even majority of youth in India are losing interest in such activities and festivals happening all around India. How do you think that the government would or will be able to preserve such festivals, religions, which in few decades might just become history?
I think it's a very important question you've
yeah.
asked, because wherever you see government patronage, government largely consists of even at the most positive, well-meaning people, but they're not experts. So often they may want to intervene and interject, but not know how. I'll give an example of my own state. The Kalbelia form. You see the Kalbelia, that black flounce, a woman standing there outside a fort of Rajasthan, is almost a kind of, poster, picture poster for Rajasthan tourism. Now, Kalbelia as a form was an invented form. This is something we know. It was invented by a woman called Gulabo, who would dance a very sinuous form of dancing. That became Kalbelia dance. And today you have, on YouTube, you will have Kalbelia dancing classes all across the globe. So people do teach how to dance like a Kalbelia. But to answer your question, that what can be done actually to substantively help preserve, promote such forms. So especially when the people themselves see a relevance to it. And I think the one thing we can do, the one thing government can do, is preserve the people. Preserve the people. The lifestyle of the Bhils is constantly endangered. They are having to migrate, they are having to do mine work, all kinds of work, that just to keep their bodies together. So in such a situation, you are not giving them even the social conditions for this kind of creativity, materiality to even function and prosper. So I would say, if you really want the form to prosper, then the people who conduct the form must prosper.
And also recognition of the artists who perform, and then the text being recognized as a national treasure. These are the things that the government needs to do. But see, the government intervention is always not invited, honestly, by the people and also for them, because it has both good and bad effects, and then the bad effects become rather worse over the years, and then it becomes many art forms, many tribal art forms, especially you see on the floats of the Republic Day parade in New Delhi. On the floats that you see, they are all uniformed. They have uniforms. The tribal artists are called, and then they are given a uniform by the South Cultural Center here, and then like this every regional cultural centers, and then their individuality, their own identity are all lost in the way they are put on a display along with these missiles and the other weaponries, and then on the float. And then so it's a kind of because the government doesn't really know, not only in India, but all over the world, the governments do not know how to deal with the folklore in general. And what is the cultural expressions of a large number of people, especially tribals. It is a very difficult situation. Probably one day you should become a cultural administrator with the government of India and bring out a major change. You need to pursue that.
And that is, from what I understand, you talk about a liminal space of 40 days. The liminality gives a certain sanction to suspend reality, reverse power order. That's fascinating. It also democratizes to a large extent the power equations that are prevalent in the society. But after the 40 days, people revert to the unequal power order or whatever. That is one thing. And in this liminal space, people take the sanctions seriously and indulge in transgressions that you spoke of. Will that be taken up, taken against them once the liminality is suspended, the 40 days are over? Do people earmark people who have made fun of them, who have reversed the power order? That would be. And does this, from what I understand, it happens every year. So it is a society-sanctioned democratization. 40 days where you forget about the real order, you all play act a different power order. Okay. Does it at all chip away from the unfairness of power distribution in the society over the long years?
Pramila, I mean, you can answer together because she's raised a point. And complementing that, is it that because it's such a short period and limited and within bounded, these freedoms are allowed, and therefore they are allowed. It's a kind of letting off steam, so that overall they'll remain where they are without. You give them a little space to get rid of including the women who are allowed to get into trances and all that. So even they otherwise have very repressed lives. But if you allow these little spaces, maybe they are ready to continue as usual in the longer time.
I think both of you, I've discussed it. This is something I try to problematize also. That, yes, there's a whole pressure cooker theory that, because of the suppression, because of the huge inequities, you have to allow society some avenue, like Holi. It's such a common festival of reversal. It's always full of obscenities and so on. So much so it's almost become gentrified. You wouldn't have Holi today if it was not all of that. And to that extent, I completely agree with both of you. But having said that, I think there are slow and steady accretions to their social status. And certainly, they are not the prevailing ideology that sort of comes to the fore is that of barabari, is that of some kind of equality. So while I have to also regretfully agree with both of you, I do also see that there are, because you see, there is very little scope for a kind of revolutionary dimension of change here. So here we can only really seek, because the power relations are what they are. So we are only seeking some kind of social equality and some parity in status. And I think this is one vehicle for this kind of, where transgressions are also accepted. Yes, some reflection, some transgression, and of course, there is a defensiveness when this is openly played out in the full view of the public. So, yeah.
There is, okay.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. I'm Omira, currently in the 11th grade, and I just wanted to ask a simple question, something meaningful to you. In the books and today, you had discussed about the many khels or plays during the Gavri. Was there any that was close to your heart? Anyone that was close to your heart specifically?
A lot of them, they're playful. They're they're funny, they touch you in odd ways, but a lot of them you need to sort of rethink because you feel you've not understood it. And it's a completely folk form. There's no stage, there's no backdrop, there are no props. The Khelias don't know where they're going the next day. It's where the women of their village have been married. So they go literally, from one village to the other over 40 days. It is actually a logistics nightmare to me, but it's undertaken. They walk. These days, increasingly, they take maybe public transport, but no footwear is allowed, none of that. So, you have a different kind of atmosphere in different villages. Some villages, because we are talking about a very poor society, so some villages where the villagers are not in a position to entertain them, feed them and so on, and others where they are entertained and lavishly so. And so I think all in all, some of the larger caves, especially when they are conducted with the kind of heart that they do, are really very, very, very wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I am Ramesh. I just wanted to ask you whether the Gavri is being played for 40 days based on some calendar, almanac kind of stuff, like a harvest festival, like we have this Pongal and stuff like that in Tamil Nadu. So like that it is being played out in the same time of the year, or
Yes, yes.
if 40, it keeps on going throughout the year.
To Tithi, no. It starts on the day called Thandi Rakhi, the day after Rakhi. And starts to a Tithi. And the village priest, the Brahmin priest, will find the Muhurat for starting it. And 40 days is the colloquial term for Sawa Mahina. It is not, the 40 days, the year I documented it, was 33 days exactly. And in the volume 1, I have the maps where they have gone from day to day. So it is certainly only during the Chomasa, during the monsoon, that this is undertaken. Because the earth is supposed to be regenerated during the season.
How many times in a year it will be performed repeatedly?
Once.
Only once.
And often after there are gaps of 3 years, 4 years. There are villages that have not had the Gavri for over 40 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's interesting. They all seek that the goddess come to them and tell them that I want to come as your guest, but she doesn't come. They ask her to come, but she doesn't come. So they don't have it. And the way they decide that it's going to be held is again through a temple where all the castes go and ask that she come. So this is the world of ritual. This is the kind of inner world of a society. Sorry? No practice, no teaching, no learning. That's also remarkable. Well, everybody knows these by heart. What is amazing, this is substantially, well, not the new generations, but the adults are substantially unlettered people, but they know all of these by heart. So you will go to a village when there is a khel, even at night, you'll find the entire audience chanting with the khelias. It's actually breathtaking.
The young men there.
Yeah, my name is Ronit, and my question is, you had mentioned Gavri is like the festival of fun and frolic. So do these people, the Bhils, do they actually enjoy this festival and do it wantedly, or is they like constrained by this unwritten rule that they have to perform it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think they all love it, even those who are dancers, khelias, because it is very grueling. You know, for 40 days you eat one meal, you have all the other abstinences, no bathing, after all, except for that one day in the middle, no cutting of hair. So they're very, very strict, even, sort of monastic kind of rules. And yet they look forward to doing it. And there is often a kind of rivalry about which part you are allowed to undertake and play in the Gavri. And these are also apportioned through hereditary, rules. That if you're a Shiv, then your son will be a Shiv in his son. Only men. No women, machi. Oh, these are all men dressed as women. Well, like all folk forms in the country.
Mostly. Recently, Kutu. Kutu was performed only by men. Yakshagana, Ugukada, all over India.
Absolutely.
But Kutu tradition in Tamil Nadu has changed. Now women also perform.
I see.
Yeah. But it has been by the interventionist artists and scholars.
Yeah, like in Bhanu Bharati,
Yeah.
trying to stage a play called Pashu Gayatri and encouraging women, but it didn't take.
Here it is still happening in the margins, but it is happening vibrantly. So thank you, Mrs. Aditi Mehta, for not only undertaking research and bringing out these wonderful volumes, but also making this complex tradition accessible to this attentive audience today. I want to thank Mr. Chandramouli, Mr. Sabari, the Center for Chennai International Center, and the audience for your very attentive listening to a very complex academic presentation. And especially, I'm very glad about the young audience. They are saying they were from the 11th grade, and I greatly appreciate your patient listening and also inquisitive mind and your bravery to actually ask questions, and that is very encouraging. That's a takeaway of and this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think that was a fascinating evening where we got exposed to a culture which is completely alien to us. To be frank, when I heard of the Bhils, it was in Abujmad, and people said at that time in 2011 that no government office had ever stepped foot in the Abujmad, and there were no maps, there were no, nobody could enter those areas. And to actually come out with such a painstaking work taking more than 3 decades to document something which will die out, and I hope it doesn't die out, but I think you've done an extremely valuable service by bringing these 3 volumes. More power to your pen, ma'am, and let's hope that we come out with more such events where we expose you to various cultures, to various people of this country. And I would request that members who have come here, if you come to know of scholars or if you come to know of people who would enrich us with their knowledge, please reach out to us and we'll invite them and provide a platform for them to share their wisdom and their expertise. I would also like to thank Dr. Muthukumar Sami. I think we should have a session with you, because when we were listening to man, there are so many other traditions which are local, which people don't know about. We had an earlier session where Bhagavatam being performed in about 108 villages surrounding Chennai, and we hardly knew about it. And these were also where people are very acrobatic. They climb up palmyra trees and then they get possessed and things like that. So we will invite you again to talk to us. Thank you very much, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for having come to the CIC and graced us. Thank you.